Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to It Goes Bump in the Night podcast. I'm
Woo!
your host, Luis, and we have Levi.
Hello. It's been a minute since we've done one of these.
It really has, actually. We're very sorry. Life kind of just got in the way. I was abroad for a whole semester studying abroad, so that kind of took up a lot of time. And I know Levi was pretty busy
Yeah, so
doing things too.
hopefully we're gonna be on a more consistent schedule from here on out.
Today, we will be going over a very famous case from Soviet Russia, known as the Soviet Union, called the Dyatlov Pass incident. What is this incident? The Dyatlov Pass incident is known as one of history's greatest mysteries. In 1959, 10 experienced hikers, made up of mostly university students, formed a group planning on a skiing expedition across the northern Ural Mountains in Sverdlovsk Oblast, Soviet Union. I definitely butchered that name, so apologize in advance for any mispronunciations out there. No one was prepared for the horrors that the hikers were soon to face. Also, before we get into it, we want to give a special thanks to Caitlin for doing a lot of the research for this episode and for this topic. We appreciate you a lot, and it definitely made our research a lot more profound, and we're more knowledgeable about the case. So,
And then just so everyone knows, Caitlin is my fiance. But yeah, she put a lot of work into this episode, so hopefully it's gonna be way better than our last couple.
for sure, and we're learning.
We're
It's
learning.
a learning experience,
Each one has
but we
just been
really do
better.
appreciate her help.
All right, so this Dyatlov Pass incident is something I had never heard of until you had brought it up to me, um, quite a while ago actually. Because this episode's been a work in progress for a while, just because we've been haven't fully focused on it. But I didn't really know anything about it until now, and now I feel very knowledgeable on it, and it's actually very intriguing.
Oh yes, for sure. This is one of those cases that a lot of people keep talking about, or at least they did for a while. When I was in high school and like early college. Uh, but um, yeah, it's just very mysterious how you think you're going on a fun trip with some friends, go hiking, go skiing, whatever, and um, you don't expect for disaster to happen, So it's a very scary situation, but we'll have to tell you more about it.
All right, well, without further ado, let us hop in to the Dyatlov Pass incident. In the winter of 1959, a group of 10 individuals was assembled by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old radio engineering student at Ural Polytechnical Institute, to go on a hiking trek across the Soviet Union. All the members were experienced grade 2 hikers with ski tour experience. At this point in time, there were only 3 grades in which routes were ranked, and the hikers would receive grade 3 if they were to complete this journey. The route they were to take was a 90-mile trek across the Soviet Union that was graded a 3 on the scale. And on January 8th, it was confirmed that they were going on this trip, and then on the 23rd, the group left together on their journey. The group took the train to Ivdel and then took a truck to the last inhabited settlement in the north. On the 27th, after spending the night, they took off onto the route with Dyatlov as their leader, planning to return no later than February 12th. One day into their journey, Yuri Yudin, 21-year-old male, was forced to turn back due to joint pain, leaving 9 hikers to continue the journey. On January 31st, the party made it to the edge of a highland area in which they would have to climb. They prepared this by storing surplus food and equipment in a nearby wooded valley they planned to use on their trip back. They waited until February 1st to start the climb, but quickly lost their direction due to all the winter storms. The group ended up going further west than they intended, and the snowstorms were beginning to pick up. Visibility was low and the snowstorms were constant. Instead of camping in a wooded area 9 miles down the path, they were forced to set up camp towards the top peak of Kholat Syakhl. It is here where Dyatlov and his team disappeared.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. They seemed like, they already had grade 1 and grade 2 under their belt, so it wasn't like they were inexperienced at all. They had some experience, which even experienced hikers and outdoors people, I guess, uh, can even they're also susceptible to danger out in the wild and out in harsh weather, um, and harsh climates. So, I mean, I don't know exactly why why it had to be like the whole group, that that went missing. It's just crazy to me how a whole group can just disappear like that.
Yuri really turned back at the right time. That joint pain was probably awful, but he's he still um, wasn't lost.
Yes, Yuri, like it's crazy to see. Sorry, I was gonna say that how um the one person that turned back was the only one who survived the whole uh trip.
Yeah.
So it's just I don't know, it's just baffling to me. Time passed, and on February 20th, relatives of the travelers demanded a rescue operation to begin. On February 26th, 6 days later, the last campsite of the group was found. Mikhail Sharavane, the volunteer student searcher who found the tent, said the tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. The tent itself was barely sticking out of the snow and was cut open. From the campsite, 9 sets of footprints went for 1,600 feet to where they became covered in snow. This is where they found the remains of a small fire. With the fire were the first bodies discovered. Georgy Krivonchenko and Yuri Doroshenko were both found dead next to the campsite. They both had no clothing other than underwear and shoes. Branches in a nearby tree were broken up to 5 meters high, which suggested that they had tried to climb the tree. Were they looking for something or trying to get away?
Okay, well, so we have come across our first set of bodies um,
Not
next
good.
to the campsite. So it looks like so far they had woken up in the middle of the night for some reason and have tried to move away. That explains why they aren't wearing any clothing, right? Because they just woke up. Why did they have to start a fire away from their camp? And why did they have?
It's a good
Why is
question.
their tent torn down?
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like something might have attacked them,
Yeah,
but so far in like the initial sighting of the site, there's no evidence of like an animal or anything like that. So
yeah. So they left all their stuff behind, which means that they were moving away fast, and they hadn't got their
yeah,
clothes on yet. And with the tent being torn down, um, like did something tear that down? It said it was covered in snow too, which had been a while before they could, like 6 days before they could even get up there. So I
mm,
mean, it could have just been snow that was covered over the time. So what did this, and why were they trying to climb the tree? You know,
yeah, it's definitely weird, and it's weird that they didn't see like any prints or anything from animals, but also uh, it's probable that if there were any animals in the area or that any animal that might have attacked them, those footprints and everything would be
Hmm.
covered up by the snow. So
Investigators continued to search for the other bodies and found three more: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustin Slobodin. Their bodies were found at 900 feet, 1,570 feet, and 2,070 feet from the other bodies. The bodies were examined and found to have no life threatening injuries, only small head injuries on Slobodin, and their deaths were ruled as caused by hypothermia. So we found more bodies. These ones have no signs of life threatening injuries, just a small head injury. How that happened, not really sure. But they did die from exposure to the cold, probably because they didn't have any clothing on. But is another thing, were they still running from something, or what ended up happening here?
yeah, it's very weird. They were found a long way away from the other bodies. So to me at least, it seems like maybe they were looking for help, you know. Um maybe their fellow camp like their fellow peers maybe were stuck or couldn't move for whatever reason, and they probably went to ask for help. But I mean, I don't even know if like that was the right direction they were going in, or like if it coincides with the nearest town, or I don't know. But I feel like during a storm, especially like if they were in the middle of a storm, it would be hard to tell what direction they had to walk, you know?
And either they were like, we're not really sure if they were going in different directions, or if
Hmm.
they were like all traveling together and then they kind of dropped off one by one. Um, it's kind of, we're not really sure where they were going, what their plan was. We do know they did just, the main cause of death was hypothermia.
The other four bodies were not found until May 4th of 1959, under 13 feet of snow in a ravine. Three of the four hikers were found better dressed than the other five, and some of the clothing they were wearing looked as if though it had been removed from the others after they died. Once the bodies were recovered, they were also examined, and their fate was very different. Three of the four hikers had fatal wounds rather than just dying from hypothermia. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol's skull showed major damage. Dubunina and Semyon Solotaryov both had major chest fractures. The injuries, according to the medical examiner, had to have been caused by extremely high force comparable to that of a car crash. However, the bodies had no external wounds associated with the injuries. This suggests that the bodies were subjected to a high level of pressure or crushed. By the time the four bodies had been found, they had been in the moving water of a creek, which is suspected to have caused the damage to their soft tissue. Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, facial tissue, and a fragment of skull bone. Zolotaryov was missing his eyeballs, and Alexander Kolovatov was missing his eyebrows. These injuries were judged to have happened post mortem or after death. One victim was also shown to have some levels of radiation in their clothing. The official cause of death at the time for the group was ruled, quote, a compelling natural force, end quote.
So this is where it gets more interesting, because we actually are starting to see more actual physical damage on what happens. Now, it is in the bottom of a ravine, So it could be just due to they were running and fell in. But it seems like a lot of the other stuff was done after they had already died.
Yeah, I mean, it's always strange to find um bodies, like animal and human bodies that are missing parts like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's always like, um, I don't know. It feels like something went out of its way to remove those parts from the bodies.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that it's just like due to the uh weather, it helps break down the bodies as well as uh just animals maybe that went by and scavenged.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that, but there is also no evidence of scavenging from different animals. Um, so that's always weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always different. What's weird to me too is that it's different parts are missing from each body. So it's
Yeah.
not usually the same, except for like Alexander and Duanina, who were both missing their eyeballs.
Well,
Um,
Alexander was also missing his eyebrows. That's why was his eyebrows missing? Like, what is? I mean, like, is that something that like wonder what would have caused that?
yeah, I don't know. It's weird that he was just missing his eyebrows too. Sorry, and I didn't mean to say Alexander. I meant
Oh.
earlier. I meant to say Zolarterov was missing
Oh
his
yeah, yeah, yeah.
eyeballs. Sorry, correction. But yeah, and then Alexander's missing his eyebrows. That's kind of weird too.
Yeah, like what's going on with that?
Someone just went up with a razor,
Like, oh,
shaved it off.
well,
He's the razor
oh,
killer. I don't know.
well. Thinking about theories and what happened, do we want to hop into some of the theories? So, one major theory that everyone thought for a long time um, was that it was a Yeti. Was one of the early ones that they had encountered a Yeti, which caused them to run. Um, and then, of course, everything happened from there, which explains why they were trying to climb the trees to get away. It could explain why they were running into the ravine, or even just some of the damage. Because the quote says a compelling natural force will kill them, high pressure. I don't know. I feel like getting punched by a yeti might do you in, if they are from what they sound like they are. But also the yeti theory is one that is pretty implausible. Not just because if you don't believe in the yeti, a lot of the evidence kind of points against it, such as the footprints kind of looked like they were more walking away from their campsite initially, instead of running, especially when they made that first campfire. Um, then there's no footprints to suggest a yeti, since they were able to find the footprints of the people. There's a chance that there would be yeti footprints unless they happen to have evolved. There's a lot of different evidence against it, which, sad to say, as cool as a yeti is, I don't think it was one.
I don't know if here's my question. Are you a skeptic of the Yeti?
Like, do I not believe in the yeti?
Yes. What is your take?
Um, I I believe in the Yeti more than Bigfoot. I love both of them. I love Bigfoot and the idea of Bigfoot. I don't think it's super plausible nowadays. So I don't like. I will, of course, if there is a sighting of Bigfoot and it's like really well broken down, I will like be like, oh, that's actually, that does make sense. And then I don't believe I'd ever actually see one, and I don't believe they really really exist. Yeti's the same way. I think it's more plausible because there's a lot of unexplored parts of like mountains and snowy areas, and especially over in like Russia. So the chances of that happening are a lot higher. They could have evolved to live in those habitats where we can't. So I would believe in the idea of a yeti more. Yes, I say I don't know. I don't know if I fully believe, but I believe in it, kinda. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of where you are at too. I would I would also agree. I feel like with Bigfoot, it's a cool idea, and I like to believe in it for fun,
Yeah,
you know. But I think it's harder for Bigfoot since you know I feel like most of the national parks and forests have been explored. Maybe not
yeah.
as much as we think they have, but to a degree where I feel like they would have found something like a Bigfoot but already, and it would already be documented well and everything.
Something that big
Um,
that's never gotten a full video coverage of at some point, with how many security cameras we got all over the place, with how many cameras in general. I find it a little suspicious that they're all just brief glimpses of, other than a few big ones, which we'll talk about in a Bigfoot when we cover Bigfoot at some point. Um, but it's pretty Bigfoot's unplausible, whereas the Yeti is way more plausible, and the story of the Yeti goes way back, way farther than Bigfoot does. Whereas it's like almost a part of history that people have been seeing these big creatures for, ever since like early, civilization.
yeah, for sure. So I would agree with that. I would say I would say the Yeti has a better chance of hiding than Bigfoot. Another theory is the KGB agents. According to Alexei Rakitin and his book Dyatlov Pass, Semyon Zoloratov, Alexander Kolivatov, and Yuri Krivenchenko were actually KGB agents on a secret mission to uncover a cell of CIA agents. The KGB was the main foreign intelligence and domestic security agency of the Soviet Union from March 13th, 1954 to December 3rd, 1991. For these three individuals, the mission was to deliver radioactive samples and to photograph the CIA agents. Rakitin theorized that they ended up being killed by the Americans. During the time, this seemed very plausible due to the paranoia and fear of the Soviet Union. The KGB agents supposedly tried to deliver fake proof of radioactive tainted clothes to the group of CIA agents and take photos of them. The rest of the group had no clue about the real purpose of the journey when it took place. When the CIA found out what they're receiving was fake proof and just a guise for finding spies, they proceeded to fight, torture, and massacre the whole group. According to Rakitin's research, Zolotaryov was a veteran with years of combat experience. Kolivatov and Krivenchenko had both worked in different nuclear power plants and laboratories. Rakitin believed that it was not a coincidence that these three were linked together to go on this trip. It is important to mention, however, that their friends didn't believe that to be the case.
Well, I think that would make some sense in some ways, especially since because there was mention of radiation on some of the clothing, right?
Yeah, that's weird how they did find that.
Yeah. So,
Which it could be, it could make sense that they were secret KGB
well,
agents, but
were the bodies
I don't
found
know.
in the ravine? Were they the people that would have been tortured?
Yes, I believe
Because
so. Yuri
yeah,
had her his I mean his sorry. Yuri had his uh eyes, tongue cut out, stuff like that. So maybe not cut out, but
yeah,
they're definitely missing. So the theory is that they were tortured that way. Who knows?
the poor Alexander getting his eyebrows removed. Like, whew, that would have what a
That's
for.
a form of
Like
torture.
maybe I'm just imagining the whole trip. They're just like he's just like, yeah, look at my eyebrows. They're like perfectly like the whole time he's like running his fingers over them, making sure they're kempt, and then they're like torturing him, and they're like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
Just pulls out the
It's like,
razor.
no, please, God, no, not the razor.
It is kind of far fetched. I don't know. There wasn't,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a little out there.
yeah.
Um, But I mean, it's one of those. It's like it does kind of add up, but I don't believe that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And it is important to mention. Earlier, I did mention that uh, some of the friends of uh, these three individuals didn't really believe that that happened to them. They really argued that uh, these were good people. They did not work for the government. They did not, uh, you know, they didn't work for the KGB or whatever. So, and then one of them also mentioned, it was important to mention this too. One of the people talking about Zolotriov, so the supposed veteran, they talked about him saying that there was nothing that really scared him, and that it would take all something just out, like basically extraterrestrial, basically to be able to scare him. Like he was a very uh, cold-headed, strong guy. He who was tough. They didn't really believe that he would run away from something and be killed. So the next theory is UFOs. Some conspiracy theorists claim that some UFOs scared the group away. At about the same time that the group was hiking, Soviet armed forces launched several rockets from Baikonur base. Although the military claimed that those rockets landed in the North Ural Mountains, several geologists about 70 kilometers away from the mountains saw glowing and pulsating orbs flying in the direction of the group on the day of the tragedy. During the investigation of the scene, a camera belonging to one of the hikers was found with a lot of photos. One of those photos was of something that looked like glowing orbs. A man named Lev Ivanov was in charge of the investigation at Dyatlov Pass. After an interview with a local journalist in the early 90s about the incident, he claimed that he was forced by a member of the Soviet Congress to eradicate any reference to the UFO or any other strange phenomena. The UFO theory was not further investigated as they were deemed a pseudoscience or religious phenomena.
Okay, well, let's start this off. Do you believe in UFOs?
Uh, On this one, yes, actually. There's just a big part of me that does believe in UFOs. Not necessarily that they're aliens. There's something weird going on, I would say. And even like in the past few years, the US government has already, released classified footage of UFOs, which today I think they call them UAPs.
Yeah.
But I think it's very compelling that they did that, and it's just I think there is definitely something there. Um, is it like secret weaponry or like secret weapons that they're creating, secret, high tech aircrafts from the government? Who knows? Um, but I also wouldn't say that it's not aliens. It's always fun to believe in aliens. And I think somewhere in the universe there has to be life, other than on Earth. But yeah, that's my take.
I'd say in this instance, um, it could the idea of a UFO makes sense, but not in like the alien sort of way. That it could have just been like a testing of some secret um aerial vehicle or some secret missile or some that they see from a distance that scared them, and I'm guessing that's what would have caused them to run in the first place and then die of hypothermia. um, Now, could that have been something that caused like an avalanche or say something like that, like if a weapon was fired, but there was no proof of that either, I guess. So it's just kind of, I'm trying like how would the UFO have caused all this is my question.
I don't know. I guess some theories were saying that um the UFO might have came down and like somehow scattered radioactive energy in the area. which caused uh them to, die. And on top of that, they they're taking the little bits of radioactive material that was found at the scene, and they're uh linking that to the UFO theory, saying, "Oh, see, this is proof that the UFO or UFOs came and like killed this group or something." Uh, but that's also a stretch. The radioactive material found could have been from anywhere. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a stretch, but that's where they kind of get more proof for that.
That's where the question comes of what was radioactive material doing out there? Like, where did that come from?
See, I don't know, but we are talking about um, the Soviet Union,
That's
which
true.
definitely worked with that kind of thing and still does. But no, yeah. So it makes sense, but like, where did it exactly come from? Like you said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's uh the KGB incident as
Mm-hmm.
well,
That one, see, that's where
but
like the radiation kind of makes sense. Could have been a mix of all of
yeah,
it. They were all friends,
who knows?
and then they all had different, hobbies. CIA and KGB, and then they happen to see the UFO, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We can't have you seeing this." Or which that's like they should do an X File. They should have done an X Files episode on this. This would have been kind of cool. Do you watch X Files?
That would have been really
Have you
cool.
seen?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched X Files actually.
I've been watching it for the first time recently, and I've been
Oh, nice.
obsessed.
That's cool.
Anyway, back onto the topic of hand. Um, so I'm gonna go over what is considered to be the theory of what everyone assumes actually happened based on the evidence they found, and I do have some contradictions I found against it. Suppose apparently. So without further ado, let's go over this. While all this KGB, UFO, Yeti theories are definitely interesting, the most plausible explanation, and the one you're probably yelling at your phone saying, "Y'all are dumb, it's a fucking avalanche." Um, that's what everyone considers it to be.
Who would have
Who
thunk?
would have thought? On July 11th, 2020, an avalanche was declared the cause of death by deputy head of the Urals Federal District, Audrey Kuraskov. This has since been backed up and claimed by scientists from Switzerland after they saw the Disney movie Frozen. How this backs up this theory, you might ask? I will tell you. Johann Game, head of the Snow Avalanche Simulation Laboratory at a Swiss Federal Technical Institute, thought that the snow animation for the film was so accurate that he met with a team of specialists who worked on the effects. Following this, Gaume was able to modify the movie's snow animation code to simulate the impacts avalanches could have on humans. After using statistics from car crashes and comparing it to the way an avalanche would hit the Dyatlov group's camp location, they were able to create a model. In the model, it was shown that a 16-foot long block of hefty snow could, in this particular spot, break the ribs and skulls of people sleeping on the Rigged Peak. These would have been the type of injuries that would have been severe, but not immediately fatal. Freddie Wilkinson, a professional mountain climber interviewed by National Geographic, was quoted saying this: "I am absolutely convinced that the tragedy was the result of wind and snow deposition, and the fact that they pitched camp in the lee of a ridge. I have made this mistake in my mountaineering career more than once. This is a rare event, but something that is definitely a sad possibility for the hiking group." So, it does make sense that an avalanche would be something that caused them to get up and move. It could have covered their camp or pushed them over off into the ravine. But one thing I'm confused on is if it did tear up their tent and they got out of their tent and then they were like, and then if they camped from there and died of exposure, then that makes sense. But what caused them to go over after the fact? Like, why did they go off the cliff? Were they just stumbling around? That's what I'm mostly confused on with an avalanche. Um, what are your initial thoughts on the avalanche theory?
I think it's the safest. Um, theory in terms of how plausible the theory is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to me, it's also weird that they were like past that where the initial avalanche would have landed.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if it was a big enough avalanche, it could have taken them towards that direction,
Yeah.
anyways. Um, and then the two people that were found uh far away from the other bodies, those two individuals might have gotten out of the avalanche, but then died of hypothermia on the way to find help
Yeah.
or to continue the journey. I don't know. But it does seem like that is the uh
It
sorry, it does seem to be that's what actually happened.
it could have been like the instance where they got out, but then as it was still kind of coming down, and then a couple of them are the ones that went over the cliff, and then the other ones survived the initial avalanche but died of exposure while they were trying to go get help. Or and there's
Yeah.
nothing saying that they didn't get out and start running, and then like Dyatlov and the other two that got out, or that had died away from the fire trying to get help, for instance, had gotten up a tree and survived that initial one where the other ones didn't. So, and then they were like the three or four remaining ones, and then died from hypothermia. That makes the most sense. However, there are a couple of contradictions that makes the avalanche theory not make complete sense, and I will go over them. So, contradiction one is the location of the incident did not have any obvious signs that an avalanche had taken place when they found it. An avalanche would have left certain patterns and debris distributed over a wide area. The bodies found within a month of the events were covered with a very shallow layer of snow, and there had been an avalanche. And if there had been an avalanche of sufficient strength to sweep away the second party, these bodies would have been swept away as well. This would have caused more serious and different injuries in the process and would have damaged the tree line. Right, so that's actually saying that there wasn't any sign of damage. If there was an avalanche strong enough to bring the others over, why were the others still on top? That's one of the contradictions. There have been over 100 expeditions to the region and had been held or have been held since the incident, and none of them have ever reported conditions that might create an avalanche. A study of the area using up-to-date terrain resulted physics revealed that the location was entirely unlikely for such an avalanche to have occurred. The dangerous conditions found in another nearby area, which had some significantly steeper slopes and cornices, were observed in April and May when the snowfall of winter were melting. During February, when the incident occurred, there was no such conditions. And then the third one is an analysis of the terrain and slope showed that even if there had been a very specific avalanche that found its way into the area, its path would have gone past the tent. The tent had collapsed from the side, but not in a horizontal direction. And then the next one, Dyatlov was also an experienced skier, and the much older Zolotarov was studying for his master's certificate in ski instruction and mountain hiking. Neither of these men would have been likely to camp anywhere in the path of a potential avalanche. And then finally, the footprint patterns leading away from the tent were inconsistent with someone, let alone a group of 9 people, running in panic from either real or imagined danger. All the footprints leading away from the tent and towards the woods were consistent with individuals who were walking at a normal pace. So, with all that, I don't know what to believe anymore. I still don't think we've solved the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. There are some inconsistencies there with what supposedly actually happened. Um Also, yeah, that also doesn't make sense to me either where uh if that did happen, it doesn't make sense that Zolotarov and Dyatlov were both really experienced outdoorsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Um and especially uh Alexander who he was getting his master certificate in ski instruction
Mm-hmm.
and mountain hiking. So obviously, um, if he's gonna be an instructor, sorry, if he's gonna be an instructor and teach people how to do it, doesn't seem that likely that he would camp right under uh, a potential avalanche. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that is strange to me.
And
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like that is the one that could be um, fought against with the fact that it was snowing. They didn't really know where they were, and they just decided to camp there. But it's the other ones that are kind of iffy. It's like, why was there no signs of an avalanche having had happened? The only signs really were the layers and layer of snow, but that was months and months after the incident had occurred, so snow could have piled up on top of the bodies in the ravine regardless. So whether or not that was the avalanche or not, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. And that's also, I don't know. It's just bizarre to
Yeah.
me. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but when someone gets hypothermia, do they also start to hallucinate? I'm pretty sure,
Huh?
right?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Symptoms of hypo. Not what? No, not that. Hypothermia. Shivering, exhaustion, feeling very tired, confusion, fumbling hands, memory loss, slurred speech, and drowsiness. So I could
Interesting.
see hallucinating being definitely one of those.
Because if they're having hallucinations, it might have drove them mad, I
Yeah, because it
guess,
says like
and start
the
running
three
around.
stages are shivering, reduced circulation, slow weak pulse, slowed breathing, lack of coordination, confusion, sleepy behavior. It could be the fact that they're not getting enough oxygen to their brain, their system's not moving fast enough, they're starting to see stuff. It could be any number of things.
Mm, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
so whether they started to go a little crazy and then thought they were being chased by something, um, someone went to go try to get help, who knows?
I feel so bad for the, I guess, the
Yeah,
victims,
it's
uh, and their families too.
yes, and I can't imagine like the worry when they were going out there on this expedition and then when they didn't come back. I can't imagine.
Yeah. And only they really know what like truly went
No, I don't
down.
think. Well, I don't think this is a case we'll ever actually know what happened. That was the Dyatlov Pass incident. Like Louis said at the very beginning, this is a very famous case, and one that they think they've solved. But I personally don't know if we fully know what happened. The avalanche, of course, makes the most sense, but then the fact that there are evidence to support against that, I don't know if it was necessarily UFOs or a Yeti or a wild animal attack or anything like that. But definitely something strange went down up there. Um, it definitely lets us create some crazy imaginations about what did go down. Will we ever know? Probably not. But it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm kind of with you with, the last theory is obviously the most plausible theory, the most natural theory, I guess. Um, but only they will truly know.
Thank you all for watching episode 3 of It Goes Bump in the Night. Once again, sorry for it taking so long for us to get this one out. We were planning to do a more consistent schedule, hopefully. We say that, but um, so yeah, we have ideas for the next episode, but we are not going to tell you because it's going to be a surprise. And then also, yeah,
Surprise!
also once again, thanks to my fiance Caitlin for doing a lot of the research for this one. Really helped us out and get us started on it. Um, so yeah, thank you all for watching. Um, yeah, bye y'all.
See you in the next one.